Thank you. Hello, BTC Prague. How are you doing today? Yeah. So I'm here to talk about a topic that I think you all is very near and dear to many of our hearts as Bitcoiners, and that's Bitcoin at home. What it means to be keeping your self-custody, what it means to be keeping your Bitcoin as someone who's very committed to self-custody. So let me talk a little bit about who I am. I'm Nick. I'm a Trezor expert. What does that mean? It means that I do video calls. I talk with people about how to do self-custody with Trezor devices. And as a Trezor expert, I've encountered a lot of different approaches to self-custody. I've encountered a lot of different ideas from all kinds of people. I want to share with you a few of them today. And just talk about what I've learned in terms of best practices for self-custody. So one of my pieces of advice is look ahead down the road. So we have like four main self-custody tips. So first of all, creating multiple backups, having a plan, looking ahead, having a safety net, and just understand you want to separate the best practices from the noise, and you really want to make the best decisions. You, as a self-custodian, have the ability to make the best decisions for yourself. Let's talk a little bit about looking ahead down the road. So, you know, I had to learn how to drive when I was a teenager. And one of the things we talked about in driver's ed was a good driver is going to look 10 seconds ahead of themselves. So you want to look more towards the hills, not towards the next bush over there. And it's the same in self-custody. You need to have a plan for what are you going to do with your Bitcoin as you keep going in life. Are you someone who thinks you might lose the passion about Bitcoin? Do you think you're coming back to Bitcoin Prague next year? Maybe you're not as passionate next year. Maybe you aren't. That's okay. The important thing is to have a plan for what your self-custody setup will look like if maybe you're not regularly checking that your backup is okay, which I strongly recommend you do. But you want to build in good safety nets, good redundancy for how you can be able to restore your wallet should you need to. One of the things that I strongly recommend is creating multiple copies of your backup. So at Trezor Expert and at Trezor, we have, with the Trezor Safe family of hardware wallets, we have implemented a system called SLIP39, or Single Share Multi-Share Backup. That's what I'm showing here on screen right now. So we very often start people out with what's called a single share backup. How do you know if you have a single share backup? It will be 20 words in length, and the third and fourth word will be repeated. The third and fourth word will be the word academic. And that's not a safety issue, that I know that. That is by design. It is the way the Trezor can tell that you have a single share backup. Now, that's a great starting point. But the cool thing is that you can upgrade this to multi-share backup, okay? So with multi-share backup, you split your backup into multiple parts. So in this example, someone has created a multi-share backup. They have 5 parts to their backup. And there's a number called the threshold. That number is 3. We can see here the third one is lost by fire. The 5th one is stolen. That's fine. They still have 3 parts to their backup. They can restore their backup using those 3 parts. The other part that's been stolen, that's kind of useless. because you can't figure out what the wallet is just from one part. You need the minimum number, which is 3. And ideally, these multi-share backup, each part is stored, in a different place. You want to store one, you want to keep maybe one with trusted friends or family or multiple. It's up to you. You are making the best decisions for yourself. Now, this is a Trezor-specific feature, so you're probably wondering, what if I use a different hardware wallet or even a software wallet? Well, I would note down the number up there, SLIP39. I would write that down if you're using a different wallet, and I would tell your wallet manufacturer, please add this. I really like this feature, so please add it. My second point that I really recommend is, again, being redundant, having a safety net, being prepared for unexpected occurrences. We all know life happens, and we always want to plan. You never know. I mean, heaven forbid, you never know. There might be an accident on the metro tonight. I know the metro is very safe, but accidents do happen. And if that happens, who do you want to get your Bitcoin out of that? Who do you want to inherit your Bitcoin? Do you want your mother or your daughter to inherit your Bitcoin? So having a plan really helps with this. You want to be able to inherit, you want to have a plan for that. You want to tell people, this is where my Bitcoin should go if I need an inheritance strategy. And the way to do this is to write down instructions about this. You really want to give some simple instructions for, if you're using multi-share again, who is going to keep the multi-share safe. And if you are using the, so if you are using a multi-share backup, you want to have that written down. And keep it simple, though. You don't want to make it overly complicated. Keep in mind, you may not everyone in your life may be a Bitcoiner. Not everyone who's inheriting your Bitcoin may be a Bitcoiner. So having a way they can approach this easily will make their lives so much simpler, will make them actually want to inherit your Bitcoin. Because sometimes, I can tell you, that's not always easy to make happen. Another point I really want to make is filter out noise. There's a lot of information on social media about how to self-custody Bitcoin, and making decisions about what you're going to pay attention to, what you're not going to pay attention to. At Trezor Expert, I have a very set of standards that I follow. I have specific things that I tell people to do. Okay? And filtering information on social media, that's very important. People sometimes get ideas from various blog posts, from various YouTube videos. We don't necessarily want you to be combining ideas. And what do I mean by this? I mean that sometimes some YouTubers might be very much for air-gapped wallets. Some YouTubers might say, oh, get an app like Wallet of Satoshi for Lightning first. The important thing is that you understand the advice you are following. And you understand why you are following it. You are the best person for making these decisions. What's an example of a time when someone maybe has not come up with the best advice? So I've encountered this example several times. People writing down their own wallet backup words, people taking hours to come up with wallet backup words in their own head, and then memorizing them, and then coming to a Trezor Expert session and saying, hey, I want to set these up. And when you decide you want to set these up this way, first of all, there's a very specific set of design standards that go into a wallet backup. I mentioned before the repeated academic example. So if you didn't come up with those words in the third and fourth word, you already can't create a single share backup in your own head. So first of all, it doesn't work. Second of all, it's extremely dangerous because these are not random words. These are words you came up with in your own head. The human brain is kind of not great at coming up with words. Sometimes I feel like I want to jump through the screen, and just jump out into the room with them and say, with the person who I'm working with, and say, hey, the Trezor can do this for you. It's very simple. But thankfully, we have conferences for that. We have the Trezor Expert Lounge if you want to see this. And so ultimately, I would say, again, best practices over noise. We have a saying for this in Bitcoin: don't trust, verify. And that saying is something you should really keep in mind. Like, I'm not saying you have to take my word as gospel. I am saying you need to decide what your best practices are, and you need to stand by them. And if you need help, get it, please. I'm also going to say this about Bitcoiners. It's that we all have an advantage. We have already cut out a lot of the noise. What I mean by noise is crypto. With crypto, right, you have a lot of different sending practices, a lot of different receiving practices, and it varies a bit from Bitcoin. So if I am doing a Trezor Expert session with someone who is interested in 5 or 10 different coins, that's a lot more work. Why is it a lot more work? Because now I need to explain, well, Bitcoin does this, but Ethereum or Solana does it differently. And that takes more time, that takes more energy. It's much more challenging for everyone involved. You may not get the same outcomes as if you just use Bitcoin. And what I will say is, like, you as Bitcoiners, you very often know how to ask the right questions. What do I mean by this? So I have had several Bitcoiners come to a Trezor Expert session, and they say, hey, I actually already set up my wallet, Nick, but I'm doing it again with you. Why do they do this? They want the professional help. They want to see how a professional would do this. They, on some level, don't even trust themselves to get everything right, and they say, well, okay, I'm going to get the guidance, get the advice, just see how someone does it. And some of them don't even trust the setup I do with them, which is fine. They just want to see it. They think that investing that time, that money in that way is good for them. And I'm all for that, That's how I get paid. So you want to play to your strengths when protecting your Bitcoin. You make your best decisions. You are storing something valuable, something that hopefully will be even more valuable in the future. And when you do this, you need to decide, for example, where do I keep my wallet backup? I've presented Multishare to you today. So that requires even more decisions. That requires you to decide, who am I going to keep the Multishare with? And like, when you come on a video call with me, I don't know who you are. I don't know if you have an uncle in Greece or whatever. And when that happens, I can't make these decisions for you. I don't want to make these decisions for you. Why don't I want to make these decisions for you? Well, if I tell everyone, who are you going to keep your Multishare with? Or, yeah, just keep your single share backup under your pillow. Please don't do that, but, let's say I say that. Well, then everyone who is in the business of trying to steal Bitcoin, they are going to, say, hey, Nick told 10 people this past month, keep it under your pillow. So they're immediately going to go into the bedroom and look for it under the pillow. This is why I don't give specific advice on how to store your backup. I just say keep it in a safe place, because you know what a safe place is for you, not me. It's not my business. It's not my job. So making the right decisions, that is key for you. That is something that only you can do. Knowing your neighborhood is also very important. Maybe some of the more astute people in the audience will know that I know my neighborhood very well. And if you don't, that plane is actually somewhere nearby. Whether you're living in an Airbnb, that's a DC-3 plane, or whether you just live in your own town, you need to understand your neighborhood. You need to understand how to be safe in that neighborhood. You need to understand what people are like there. I understand where I live very well, and I feel confident in my choices as a self-custodian and as a human being very well because I have this deep knowledge of my neighborhood. And that's something that takes time to develop. That's something that requires being very active where you are, learning how things are, et cetera. And the more you learn, the more is good for you. So let me recap my 4 key takeaways. You want to create a multi-share backup. You want to have your backup preferably in multiple places for redundancy to reduce single points of failure. And again, have a safety net. Consider what to do if you ever, heaven forbid, should pass away or something else should happen. I'm speaking to that one actually from personal experience. I have seen this happen personally with a family member. And please separate all the best practices from the noise. YouTube, the internet, they are very useful features. They have brought us all here today, but sometimes there's too much information. And when there is, learn to think about that. That's all. And ultimately, when you adapt this, you will make the best decisions. Be confident in yourself. Be happy with your decisions to self-custody your Bitcoin. With that said, self-custody, it's a great journey. I'd like to thank you all for hearing me out today on this. And just enjoy the moment. Enjoy what you learn as you become a self-custodian for years and years to come. You will gain more confidence. If you need help, Trezor Expert is out there. There's all kinds of other great services out there. Talk to people in the expo hall, explore, enjoy. Wish you all the best, and thank you again.
Secure your BTC Prague 2026 ticket at the lowest possible price now.